consider turning off your videos while the presentations and the panel discussions are going on. Should you have any questions, please do use the chat function in the panel below. Please do note today's event will be recorded and will be available on the Empower website. That's www.empowerforclimate.org soon after the session. But please feel free to join the conversation on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, along with the handles that have been mentioned on the screen. As quite a few of you may know, Empower Women for Climate Resilient Societies is the first of its kind. It's a unique collaboration between the United Nations Environment Programme and UN Women, funded by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, implemented across the Asia-Pacific region. We are very excited to have you all join us virtually from all parts of the globe this afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you may be tuning in from. This publication, brand new, fresh and hot off the press, comes at a critical time for all of us. While we are grappling with the pandemic, this publication, Powering Equality, makes sure that we keep our eyes on the inequalities that will determine how we recover as a global community. Looking at energy access gaps in the region and the need to build climate resilient livelihoods for women in Asia, the publication makes the case for investing in women energy entrepreneurs, bringing practical examples tried and tested from across the Asia-Pacific region in order to realize this. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, Energia, for collaborating on this publication with us. Without further ado, let's kickstart today's program. Please let me invite Isabel Lewis, Deputy Regional Director for the UN Environment Programme in Asia and the Pacific, to deliver the opening remarks for today's event. Over to you, Isabel.
Okay, thank you, Prashanti. Good morning, good afternoon, Swadika, and a warm, safe welcome to all of you who have joined us here from around the world. My name is Isabel Lewis, as Prashanti has introduced, and on behalf of the United Nations Environment Programme in Asia and the Pacific, and from here in Bangkok, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual publication launch and discussion around Powering Equality, Women's Entrepreneurship for Clean Energy in Asia. I would like to extend my greetings and thanks to our distinguished panelists who today will present their cases virtually, and especially a warm welcome to our guests, Ms. Hadley Taylor, the Energy Access Specialist at Energia, and my colleague, Ms. Sarah Nips, the Deputy Regional Director at UN Women. It is UNEP's pleasure to host this publication launch as part of our joint project with UN Women, Empower Women for Climate Resilient Societies, supported by the Government of Sweden. And a warm opportunity and thank you to our colleagues at Energia, the International Network on Gender and Sustainable Energy, for your valuable support in realizing this publication. Ladies and gentlemen, as we gather virtually here today, we all, of course, recognize the tremendous devastation, hardship, and uncertainty communities, whether rural or urban, all around the world are facing as a result of the current pandemic. This pandemic has brought, along with it, job insecurity, alongside an extreme economic downturn in many places, social implications, and also environmental consequences. Though our headlines are now dominated by the pandemic, one issue has never gone away, and that's the climate change crisis. This pandemic and the reaction it's brought and the consequences can also be a preview of what potential scenarios can lie ahead for us to address as climate change challenges go ahead. In times like these, inequality and leaving someone behind, leaving the vulnerable, continues to exacerbate. And often it is women, often the backbone of vulnerable communities, who are expected to shoulder the burden of survival and recovery. More than a year ago, this project already launched its efforts to step up the opportunity that the energy sector presents as one big opportunity for change. By 2030, renewable energy sources were already predicted to power over 60% of new access to electricity. New ways of delivering energy through off-grid and mini-grid systems were democratizing access to electricity and were already positioned to give women and vulnerable communities new economic freedoms. However, last-mile consumers in many rural areas were still falling through the cracks. So whilst this study was done long before COVID, now as we aim to build back better and building forward greener from the pandemic, women's businesses in the energy sector can not just scale up decentralized energy systems to reach these communities and power households and services, but also a very timely response on returning back to normal or even better ways of addressing energy efficiency and empowering women post-COVID. This requires innovation, but Asia and the Pacific already boasts of a wealth of experience in leveraging enterprises for climate action. This report, Powering Equality, Women's Entrepreneurship, Transforming Energy Sector in Asia, captures the evidence and lessons that make the case for investing in women-led energy enterprises and supply chains. This publication is a unique contribution to presenting new ways of thinking around renewable energy implementation and how to reach people where access to energy makes a tangible difference across sectors like agriculture, water, sanitation and health services, public infrastructure, nutrition. All these are the essential realities we need now even to recover from COVID. This publication targets policymakers, practitioners, entrepreneurs, and civil society across the spectrum, making the business case as well as the policy case that can help women-led energy enterprises thrive in this recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, this recovery period is presenting an opportunity to double down on the fight against climate change and make the new normal a better one, leaving no one behind. We must seize this opportunity while we can and empower women entrepreneurs for a resilient future. So once again, I wish to thank the organizers, our partners, for this excellent opportunity to present this timely report. And let me wish you all an engaging discussion ahead. And I hand it back to Prashanti, communications expert for the Empower project, to take us through the rest of this event. Prashanti, over to you.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for starting us off on the right note. Now it is my pleasure to invite Sarah Nibbs, Deputy Regional Director for UN Women, Asia and the Pacific, to set us off on this path. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Prashanti. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, colleagues, and all of the guests joining us here this afternoon from all over the world for this important discussion. On behalf of UN Women, I'm really delighted to be here with you. And I'd like to first congratulate the colleagues of the UN Environment Programme and Energia for the excellent knowledge product that we will soon learn more about. This is one of the many very positive results of the Empower project so far. And Empower is a project that really demonstrates the fruitful cooperation between our two UN agencies, guided by the objective of enhancing women's resilience to climate change and empowering women to take climate action at the community and national level. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge our donor, CEDA, without whose generous support, of course, this programme would not be possible. We're very grateful for this ongoing collaboration, and we look forward very much to seeing the continuing achievement of project results over the years to come. As all of you are aware, energy poverty is not gender neutral. While overall energy access in Asia has improved in the last few decades, many women, especially those in rural and remote areas, remain without access to electricity or to clean cooking energy. Women are often the primary energy users in the household and are responsible for many decisions about domestic purchases and energy use. Once they do have access to energy, women as caregivers often share the benefits with their families. Energy access can also free up women's time from unpaid care work and open opportunities for income generating activities and lead towards economic empowerment. We also know that the renewable renewable energy subsector is a booming industry worldwide, and in Asia, particularly in countries like China and India, which are the hosts of the largest installed renewable energy capacity. However, these advances need to be translated into equitable benefits for everyone. Energy policies and programs are too often gender blind, and more needs to be done to make the sector socially inclusive, fair and sustainable. We also know that the world is not currently on track to meet SDG 7 targets on access to energy. And to realise the SDG commitments around energy, we really need to give much more attention in the years ahead to addressing the gender blindness of the renewable energy sector. And we have 10 more years to work on this. During that time, we have to place the needs of the most vulnerable and those at risk at the centre of this developing sector, at the same time as we address increasing energy demands through advancing technologies, new market mechanisms and business solutions. Currently, only a third of the workforce in renewable energy are women. We also need to find ways to increase this proportion by attracting and retaining female talent in the sector. Restrictive cultural and social norms, prejudice and lack of appropriate skills and training can all hinder women's participation in the renewable energy sector. And all of us, all of our different agencies and institutions, have a role to play in transforming this situation. In fact, this call for transformation has been supported by member states in the Asia-Pacific region. During the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on the Beijing +25 review, conducted late last year, countries reaffirmed the region's intention to take appropriate measures and remove obstacles to ensure that women have equal opportunities for education, decent work, and favourable conditions of work in growing economic sectors, including clean energy. They also reaffirmed women's role as agents of change to safeguard the environment and natural resources influenced by climate change. UN Women remains committed to advance the work on inclusive climate action and to support countries on this path. And as Isabel has already outlined, this work only becomes more essential in the current context of economic recovery from COVID-19. The ongoing global pandemic is aggravating the hardship that many women face both at home and at work, and renewable energy can bring opportunities to build back better from the crisis through better, more reliable, cleaner and cheaper energy. We know that renewable energy offers a range of decentralised and off-grid solutions, from biofuels to wind farms, and many of these energy sources could generate potential co-benefits that will contribute to advances in gender equality by empowering women as energy managers, entrepreneurs and leaders. In this region, which leads the world in the continued push for renewable energy, we have to make sure that this considerable progress brings strong potential for future inclusive and sustainable development. Thank you everyone, and I wish you all a very inspiring and interesting discussion and look forward to being part of it this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your steadfast support to the project as well as this partnership. Now let's move on to our next speaker. It is my pleasure to invite Ms. Hadley Taylor, Energy Access Specialist at SE for All, Sustainable Energy for All, to join us today. Hadley, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And let me first start by excusing the absence of my boss, Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi, the CEO and Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sustainable Energy for All. But I would like to thank the organizers, and I'm excited to represent SE for All for the launch of this very important publication. As Deputy Regional Director Ms. Lewis mentioned already, COVID-19 has changed our world as we know it. It has brought unparalleled economic, political, and social challenges. And this is particularly true for women and girls who are disproportionately impacted by our current situation. In recent work by UN Women and UNDP, it was reported that the pandemic will likely push 47 million more women into poverty globally. And for South Asia, the poverty gender gap is only expected to grow. In 2030, there will be an expected 129 poor women for every 100 men living in extreme poverty. And as we well know, the economic impacts of COVID-19 are just one layer. Lack of access to healthcare, security, social protections, these are all amplified during this time. And so this crisis, like all others, it's not gender neutral, and it will certainly deepen existing inequalities facing women globally. This pandemic however, has also shown us that energy access saves lives. For those of us that are lucky enough to have it, it's powered hospitals, ventilators, it's kept us connected via phone and internet. And in the future, once a vaccine arrives, it will almost certainly be critical in order to store and refrigerate. And so as countries start to slowly rebuild economies from the impact of the pandemic, they're faced with a unique once-in-a-generation opportunity to recover better with sustainable energy for all. Countries that take advantage of this moment to invest in renewable energy, energy efficiency, clean cooking, and even local value chains will develop a competitive advantage quickly and then sustain it over a generation. So in this opportunity, we have the unique opportunity to ensure that women are driving sustainable recovery efforts and furthering progress on SDG 7. And we must also ensure that we engage Indigenous companies to truly deliver energy solutions that meet the needs of the people on the ground and create localized economic growth. And so as the Powering Equality report shows, and I'm sure we'll hear in this event today, women entrepreneurs have incredible potential to expand energy access in their communities and address these critical energy gaps. So with SE for All's new strategic direction and our close collaboration with the UN, we're focused now on action that leads to new connections on the ground. And people are really at the heart of this work, and we must ensure that the energy transition is inclusive and just and puts women and young people at the forefront. So whether it's high-level management or in administrative positions, the renewable energy sector is falling behind when it comes to gender balance. I think as we've heard, only 32% of employees in the energy sector are women globally. And if we look to other sectors, companies with gender balanced leadership and workforce in general perform better than their peers. So this is why in every aspect of our work at SE for All, we're challenging current barriers to women's participation in sustainable energy. And we're deeply committed to identifying, supporting, and championing the next generation of female energy leaders. We plan to support young women entering the energy access workforce, providing them with training, capacity building. We also want to sponsor mid-career women as visible leaders in this movement, ensuring diverse and representative voices are heard across the SDG community. So whether they're budding entrepreneurs, engineering students, or simply young women looking to solve a challenge in their home, we know that we cannot meet our goals without their enthusiasm and hope for a better future. Just want to bring one small tidbit of a success story. So just last month, there was a group of university women who participated in a training program hosted by the Nigerian Rural Electrification Agency. And they've since won an award for a startup that has basically developed a technology to improve solar system tracking devices. And so young women like this group are driving progress on SDG 7, on climate action, and across society, and we must make sure that we include them in these conversations in this crisis, like this event is doing. And so the call to action is for the women out there who want to make a difference. We need you, we need your talent, we need your innovation and enthusiasm, and we hope that you join us in this fight. This sector cannot sustainably develop without the inclusion of women, both as electricity users, as policy advisors, managers, contractors, and as we look forward to discussing specifically today, entrepreneurs. And so the Powering Equality report, it really does a wonderful job at highlighting and distilling the barriers that women entrepreneurs continue to face in this field. And however, as we continue to battle the impacts of this pandemic, I'm encouraged, and we as SE for All are encouraged by the foundation built by groups like Empower, Energia, and IFC, and others. So we look forward to supporting the path forward laid out in the report and ensure that women are central to our COVID-19 recovery and our decade of action on SDG 7. And so thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very, very much, Hadley, for the passion and the inspiration, reminding us of the opportunity that we have in the recovery from this pandemic, and setting the stage perfectly for the next part of our event. Colleagues, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our two key experts on women's entrepreneurship and renewable energy, who will give us a little glimpse of the publication, take us through how women's entrepreneurship, tried and tested in the region, makes policy sense, makes economic sense in tackling climate change in the context of this new normal. Shoma Datta, welcome. Shoma works at Energia in the capacity of senior technical advisor and a member of the advisory board, working on issues of gender, development, and energy access, having led Energia scaling up energy access through Women's Economic Empowerment Program. Shoma, we're very grateful to your support as the lead author for this publication. And joining Shoma is our very own Parimita Mohanty, Program Management Officer, Renewable Energy at UN Environment Program in Asia and the Pacific. Parimita and team are leading the implementation of Empower's work on women's energy entrepreneurship in Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Cambodia. We very much look forward to hearing from you both about this publication. So take it away, Shoma and Parimita.
Thank you. Thanks very much to the organizers and for also inviting Energia and me to speak. So in the brief, I think 15 minutes that we've been allocated, we'll try to quickly walk you through the what is there in the presentation, in the document. Greetings to everyone. And it's been a difficult few months for everyone, likely to continue. And in this situation, when the focus of governments is to build back better, women issues like women, livelihoods, energy access, resilience, climate, all of that are more important than ever. So this document essentially tries to bring together the wealth of experience in developing energy enterprises by women in Asia and the Pacific. So we look at various business models spanning across renewable energy, but also across agriculture, wash, public infrastructure, etc., etc. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, okay. So a lot of the context points have been made already, and but the backdrop to this publication really is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and I would like to just highlight two key points that sort of form the backbone of this document. One is the integrated and indivisible nature of the SDGs, their interlinkages, their contributions to each other, and the second is the pledge of leaving no one behind, where women have a role as beneficiaries but also as key change agents. As one of the speakers said, there's been a tremendous progress in terms of energy access in the last several years, and a vast majority of this has been in Asia. Two major gaps are that there's a huge disparity between rural urban that continues to remain so, and essentially the areas that are not connected through electricity are the ones that are also most difficult to connect. The other aspect of this inequality is access to clean cooking, and we know that there have been big programs, big successful programs like Ujjwala in India, in Indonesia. There are still 1.3 billion people who are lacking access to clean cooking facilities. At this point, the successes of some of the energy access strategies in the past, which we've been very proud of, actually are at the risk of being lost. COVID-19, as the previous speakers have pointed out, is disproportionately affecting women, specifically in terms of energy. We are seeing that a lot of people, including women, are actually at risk of losing their electricity connection because of lost livelihoods. Also reverting back to biomass fuels, which is a very worrying trend. Another thing that's becoming clear is that the 2030 universal energy access targets are not likely to be met until something transformational happens. And that is really making women's energy needs center stage, same as others. Next, please. A part of the context also is that it's changing and changing more rapidly than ever before. No, the previous one, please. The previous one, please. Parimita, the previous slide.
This one, right?
No, the one before this. Thank you. So like I said, the context is changing very rapidly. The solar PV modules prices are coming down. A lot of new business models are coming up. And these are business models, whether it is ownership, whether it is financing, or whether it is just modularity of systems, things are changing very rapidly. And a lot of it is made possible also through developments that are also very happening very rapidly, like mobile phone usage, better communication, like I said, modularity of systems, and so on. Uh, RE systems are really likely to actually not fund, but they're going to be responsible for over 50% of new connections, and these are largely going to be in rural and remote, more difficult areas. And this is also the area where women are likely to have a better chance, basically a greater role. Next, please. One of the important models has been engaging women, and we are seeing this in big numbers. IFC's Dharma Life in India has engaged 12,000 women in engaging in various value chains. So livelihoods are being built, and what makes a case? Why are organizations doing this? Well, from a development perspective, there's ample evidence now that putting money in women's hands, basically strengthening their livelihoods, offers huge social gains. They're seen to make investments in children's education, health. In fact, for Energy as We program, and I'm sure for many others, I can vouch that one common investment that all entrepreneurs are making has been on girls' education, and this is like an intergenerational impact that we are seeing. We also see that many of them, as they grow their businesses, they take on social leadership roles and become role models for another. In another example from Nepal, we have an entrepreneur who actually started an improved stove distribution network in a remote district. And once she started, she engaged scores of other women as sales agents, which was a complete win-win situation for both, because the agents could make an income without an investment, and this lady was able to reach areas that she wouldn't be able to do it by herself. From a business perspective, we've seen that they are really able to reach remote markets, inspire customer confidence. Why? Because they live there and they're not likely to, they're not perceived as fly-by-night operators. So in that sense, what women entrepreneurs and sellers do is actually very complementary to the private sector activities. Next, please. So in this publication, we have reviewed a number of experiences in several countries, from Cambodia, Bangladesh, Indonesia, India, Nepal, trying to distill lessons and things that work, but also things that don't, what Energy has been calling its fabulous failures. And it makes, at the end of the day, it tries to make a case for women's entrepreneurship in the renewable energy sector, and we hope will contribute to attracting greater interest and investment in the sector. Next, please. So when we review these experiences, what was very clear is that by and large this approach works very well, offers multiple gains, but also that it's a fairly complex, fairly comprehensive, and time-taking process. It's a painstaking process, starting with and one that combines a whole lot of elements together, each of which is just as important. So at the entrepreneur level, these include business development services through training, through mentoring on technology, on business skills, continued mentoring support we've seen as something that's very useful, linking with markets, training women to go out there and sell, to negotiate tough with suppliers, a lot of times negotiate also within their families for resources that they need to make these businesses. So, and what has been very central to this approach has been to help women to feel more empowered about themselves and their capabilities. So, developing women's basically empowerment. We've also seen how important it has been to strengthen the enabling environment, whether it is the quality of RE products that are in the market, whether it is regulations around ease of business for women, whether it is access to banking services. So in moving forward, there are a whole lot of lessons. I'm just going to take one or two here. So like I said, the approach we've seen really needs to move from being instrumental or in a very siloed manner to being transformative, which goes beyond looking at training or marketing or finance or any other as a single silo. The approach that works is one that tackles all of constraints together at different levels. So combine training with women's leadership, decision making, control over investments, social leadership, all of that together. Uh, in this, one of the points I'd like to highlight is that the programmatic at a program level, programs need to be very mindful of the different levels of growth of entrepreneurs. An overall growth-oriented strategy, of course, is important, but at the end of the day, the requirements of a budding new entrepreneur is very different from one that's grown. I mean, that's expanding. So that's something to keep in mind. We've also seen, and in fact, even organizations like Energia used to place a lot of emphasis on access to finance, as that is the major missing gap. But we realize that that is a gap, all right, that is important, but it definitely is not a silver bullet. It needs to be combined with a host of other measures for it to work. In fact, as we are growing, we're seeing that's just one of the many things, you know. So finally, we've also seen that we call them women enterprises, but when it really works, it has to take the family, the spouse, the children with them. And that also has to be part of the central part of the strategy itself. Like I said before, enabling environment is as important, if not more, than specific direct support to entrepreneurs. And finally, I'd just like to highlight that because it's these multiple levels of inputs and different types of inputs, there is no single organization that can do this, which is why partnerships are key, whether it is with government agencies, whether it is strategic linkages with supplier companies, and everyone else. Okay, so I'm just, we are going into sort of key messages after this, and I'm just going to take one, which is to say that in a large number of countries now, and the situation is very different from what it was 5 years ago, this approach of the next one, Parimita. Thank you. Women's entrepreneurship approach is they're no longer operating as pilots. They're tried, they're tested, they're showing results on the ground. Like I took the example of Dharma Life before, they're working with 12,000 entrepreneurs, not because and helping women is definitely not the only reason. So it's making business sense. We also seeing this in the Energia program, where we're working with more than 4,000 entrepreneurs in renewable energy businesses, as well as in businesses that use renewable energy, so poultry, horticulture, and things like that. Energy has been able to reach almost 1.2 million people, and this number is not significant in totality. It's a small number if you look at the global access gap. But if you look at the profile of this number, who are the people who are getting access? So these are last mile. They are mostly poor people. And when I say last mile, we really, in Energy, we say where the bus doesn't go, you know, that kind of last mile. So, yes, so it's a tried and tested approach. We're seeing gains at multiple levels. That's our first message. And with that, I will hand over to my colleague and friend, Parimita, to take this further. Over to you, Parimita.
Thank you so much. I will continue and link on what Soma had said, and what basically we need for energy entrepreneurship is an integrated approach. So the moment we say integrated approach, what does it mean? So what we try to do in Empower project, as well as what we reflect in this publication, is the moment we talk about integrated approach means how can we create the entrepreneurship? Once we create the entrepreneurship, how can we sustain that business? And how can we upscale that women's energy enterprises? So when we develop one or design one program, we have to take care of all these three aspects. So while we are taking care of these things from the perspective of climate resilient, the global pandemic happened. which makes it much more relevant to see how in addition to climate resilience, the overall resilience component needs to be seen from the pandemic perspective. So what we are trying to do is considering these three aspects and ensuring that women's economic empowerment is becoming more resilient for climate change as well as post-COVID-19. So now what is the next step? So once we have that broader perspective, we have designed the intervention packages, what Soma had already described and as shown in this slide. So, so these are the 5 integrated packages what we have formulated or designed. But then the next question is, when we have these integrated packages, who are those stakeholders with whom we should work? So the answer is we should engage with all those stakeholders across the spectrum at different levels, be it service provider, be it financing institutions, CSOs, practitioners, subnational and national government, regional bodies and intergovernmental bodies, and most importantly, the communities. So we at Empower works very closely with the communities on the ground and trying to bring their voices and trying to see how those voices can be reflected further. So what we are doing at this moment is we are working with various socio-cultural and socio-economic communities. For example, working with ethnic minorities in Vietnam, climate-induced migrants in Bangladesh, smallholder farmers in Cambodia, and in overall the climate vulnerable communities in these countries and in the region. What is the purpose? The purpose of this is, as we all know, that the energy needs of the different communities are different, and it needs to be reflected in the policy and planning processes. So what message that we try to give through this publication and through our Empower project is how the energy needs of women, climate vulnerable and marginalized groups can be reflected in subnational energy planning, and how that process can be established. So that process needs to be institutionalized so that the regular inflow of informations and regular interactions will happen between these two target groups. So that's something what we wanted to do, and that's something what the sector needs. So this is the key message what we wanted to convey and conveyed through this publication. What is the second message that we try to give through this publication is the DRE can be used as a tool for variety of livelihood options and to build resilience, to increase adaptive capacity, and help in building back better. So it's not that DRE is only used for a specific applications. We can have number of livelihood options like drying, irrigation, cold storage, fields cultivation, and all those things becoming much more relevant with the global pandemic. For example, the cold storage, maybe the vaccine refrigerators, and building your livelihoods and developing business plan around that would be much more sustainable and relevant in this given situations. And of course, renewable energy used as an enterprise by itself has been a sustainable model, and that can also be tried out with the livelihood opportunities. So this is something what we try to convey, that there are several opportunities which can be tied with the DRE options, and that should be continued in future. And another message is, what we are trying to say is one solution doesn't fit for all options. So we need to have different business models built depending upon the practices that is being followed and depending upon the institutional and arrangement of that particular area or regions. So be it the self-help group or a community-based enterprise, micro enterprise, SMEs, or maybe some new enterprise to be established or some old enterprise to be scaled up. So there are different options that needs to be explored further, and the business models needs to be developed around that. And the investing scenarios should be built around those business models. When I say investing, that doesn't mean only the financial investment. We need to have investment in terms of developing the skill sets of those institutions. We need to spend times and human resources to establish the processes, to establish the systems, so that the whole interventions would be more sustainable on a long-term basis. So this is again the message that we conveyed through Empower program as well as through our publications. So whatever I have said so far is more on how to sustain these interventions. But now and of course, it's not empower. There are so many programs what Soma had mentioned, and you all are expert in implementing these kind of projects on the ground, and you have lots of evidence already established in the world. So we know that women's energy entrepreneurship is gaining traction. But what is required is a significant scaling up approach. And how can we do that? It's basically we together have to scale up this kind of interventions further. So few of the recommendations, what we also projected in the publication is, once these policies are developed, once this evidence has created, how can those evidence be linked to the national initiatives, be it green growth strategies, climate change strategies, or any national strategies, so that continuous, regular implementation or intervention can continue, and that can be scaled up. How can we bring more financing institutions and multilateral partners to create a sustainable and dedicated funds for women enterprise development? And how can we ensure to create enabling environment so that private sector investment can happen into it? So that there would not be lack of financing challenges to upscale this kind of interventions in future. We also know that there are several training modules, mentorship program, which have been created by number of institutions. What is required is how to link those already available knowledge and link it to the technical institution, training institutions, or maybe national skill development centers, and create some regular skill development and mentorship program. Maybe some professional and certificate course, and of course that's also being started, and number of institutions are doing that. But how can we upscale that and make it more prevalent in this region and in different countries? And how can we create more networks and share the knowledge? Because it's not only one institutions or one countries who can do this tremendous task. We all need to collaborate. We all need to network and share the learnings and the knowledge that what we have acquired, and share it not only in the region but outside the region. So how can we do that? And the most important things, how can we bring all those women's institutions working on women's issues into all these aspects, so that gender inclusiveness would be an integral part of all those components what I just mentioned. And this is my last slide. So what basically we are trying to say after all these messages and sharing of this information, which is already there in this publication, is where do we go from here as a community, as an energy access and gender inclusive community? And that's also one of our Empower's vision. So we want embed successful women's entrepreneurship into national planning. We want to implement policies and programs for sustainable livelihoods, strengthening local institutional capacities, reshape energy access in post-COVID strategies so that it would be more gender responsive and sustainable. identify business models and financing strategies to involve greater private sector investment, and overall, summarizing all those, how can we create one enabling environment through an ecosystem-based approach so that all those interventions would be integrated and upscaled in future. So with this, if we can also do intra and inter-regional knowledge sharing and foster on that, then we as a community can say that we succeed in promoting renewable energy and women entrepreneurship globally. With this, I will stop here, and I, on behalf of UNEP, on behalf of whole Empower team, Energia, and even women, will thank you all for your patient listening, attention, and your feedback to the publication for making it a success. With this, thank you so very much to all of you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shoma and Paramita, for that presentation. To everyone joining us today, Powering Equality is now available on the Empower website as well as the UNEP website, and we're just going to drop a link in the chat box below. So please do take a look and do share it with your networks, and do let us know how you enjoyed reading it. Now, moving on to the next part of our event, we'll explore some of the ideas and the issues raised by Shoma and Paramita in our panel discussion, followed by a Q&A session. Please do type in your questions for the panel throughout the session via Q&A function. Do state your question concisely and clearly as much as possible, and do mention which panelist you will be addressing. And we will come to this at the end of the panel discussion after the panelists' intervention. I am now delighted to hand over the mic to Sheila Oparaucha. Sheila is the International Coordinator and Program Manager of the Energia International Network on Gender and Sustainable Energy. Sheila is also the co-chair of the Technical Advisory Group for the Sustainable Development Goal 7 and a member of the Health and Energy Platform for Action. And as we all know her, a real champion for integrating gender into energy access for many developing countries. So Sheila, we're very grateful to have you with us. Without any further ado, handing it over to you to lead what promises to be a very engaging discussion. The floor is yours, Sheila.
Thank you very much, Parashanti. Let me just start by joining the Deputy Regional Director of UN Women and UN Environment in welcoming us to the launch of this new publication. We have been very pleased to collaborate with the Empower project in the development of the publication, based on the promise that we have made it our mission to promote policies and actions that recognize, validate, and support women's role in sustainable energy development. We use our global platform that connects, convenes, and supports the actions of 36 organizations in 18 countries across Africa and Asia to shape the narrative for a just and inclusive energy transition. It is in this context that I'm honored to moderate today's panel discussion that brings together distinguished experts from government, business, regional organizations, multilateral institutions, and international networks to share with us their perspective on how women entrepreneurship is powering equality and transforming Asia's energy sector. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on the slide in front of you, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Vantanak Cheng, Deputy Director, Program Management and Support Division of the National Committee of Subnational Democratic Development Secretariat of the Royal Government of Cambodia. Septya Buntara Supendi, Manager of Sustainable Energy, Renewable Energy, Energy Efficiency and Conservation at the ASEAN Center of Energy. Fiza Fahan, Global Development Advisor, member of the UN Secretary General's High-Level Panel on Women's Economic Empowerment, and member of the Chief Minister's Punjab of Pakistan's Task Force for International Donor Relations. Anjali Gar, Energy Specialist and Program Manager, Lighting Asia, India from International Finance Corporation, and Karin Larson, Knowledge and Communications Manager, Gender Lead at UNFCCC UNIDO's Climate Technology Center and Network. Panelists, you are most welcome to the discussion. Before I start, just in the interest of time, I see we've lost some of our time. Could I kindly ask that you would keep your interventions concise and to the point? Having said that, Van Kanat, I don't know if you can switch on your speaker and your screen. I'd like to start with you, please. Thank you. Van Kanat, I hope you agree with me that from a government perspective, it is important to ensure climate actions and energy sector policies make clear commitments to addressing social and gender inequalities. In your view, what are the core elements required so that national and subnational policies and strategies promote women's economic empowerment and leadership in the energy sector? And in your opinion, how can the Empower project support these efforts? I see that we're having a bit of background noise, so I'll switch off my speaker and Vankana, if I can ask you to switch on your speaker and your camera to respond to the question. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Sheila, for your question, and thank you, the organizer, UNEP and INERGA, for the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. Now, going back to the question, as someone who served in both areas of the government in policy making and in support of this cause, I believe that in order for climate change action and energy policy to make clear commitment to promote women economic empowerment leadership, several actions must be taken. First, we should establish dialogue with the policymaker and relevant government agency with experts in the industry, and then specialists from relevant developing partner. Second, we need to present research and facts of the benefit and impact at very technical working group, as well as local interministerial and regional committee. Third, we should raise awareness and build capacity at the subnational level through actionable program and project implementation. Fourth, we should align our national strategy policy, such as a 10 years and 20-year development plan and any sectoral policy with this agenda. Fifth, we should make commitment in form of budget and resource allocation, similar to gender responsive budgeting and climate resilient budgeting. And last, for fruitful and sustainable implementation, there is a need for a long-term plan that, one, bring forth monitoring and factual data for future policy making and planning. The government agency should also have sufficient capacity and technology to collect, analyze, and report data. And last, we should allow a network of environment for holding consultation and stakeholder forum to discuss and development and the progress of such initiative. Now, this is to the first question that you asked me, Sheila. And then last, you asked me how can the Empower Project intervention support this effort? Well, the Empower Project itself has several elements that are crucial to this effort that I have described. Foremost is its capacity to initiate the dialogue among policymakers on the importance of women economic empowerment in climate change related agenda. Secondly, the project has enabled subnational level awareness being a component of project implementer, as well as direct integration of the women empowerment renewable energy in their subnational 3-year rolling investment plan. And thirdly, the Empower Project with other outcomes will deliver steps for policymaker tools such as accessing and analyzing gender data and formatting future policy to integrate gender equality commitment in climate change action. Thank you, Sheila. Back to you.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive response. I particularly like your focus on the linkages between long-term planning. You see that necessary for accountability, and you've also made a very strong link to the collection of gender disaggregated data to inform policies at the national and subnational level. I'll now move over to Septia. Septia, if you can switch on your camera. Septia, the ASEAN Center for Energy, ACE, has collaborated with the Empower Project to strengthen ACE's capacity to engage with gender approaches. And this is very much based on ASEAN's commitment to reducing gender inequalities and promoting women's empowerment. From a regional perspective, from a regional body such as ASEAN, Could you inform us how you facilitate member countries' opportunities to increase women's participation in economic activities as part of the Southeast Asia energy transition? And do you see any further links to the Empower Project's activities? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Sheila. And also thank you very much, Yune, for this very good opportunity for us to share our perspective on the publications that we have. ACE is representing the 10 ASEAN member states in the region. So we have a close coordination and communication with our subsector network in each ASEAN member states. And we also have an energy blueprint called ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APIC. So when we have the APIC implementation, we also have official meeting on subsector network. From time to time, we saw an increased number of women participation in terms of the high-level officers for subsector network meeting. It shows that currently the region time to time enhance the participation of the women for the meeting. When doing the APIC activities, we are partnering with our dialogue partners and international organizations. Usually, we time to time have very close discussion, and on that point, we try to insert how we can enhance the opportunity on the gender equality in terms of the project. For example, we have a very good example on the ASEAN-German cooperation. We call ASEAN-German Energy Program. On that, we develop an indicator to enhance the participation of women into the training around 40%. So we are at the early stage currently in ACE in ASEAN. However, we saw a very promising progress in the future. This actually we can see from our letters engagement with Empower team, between ACE and Empower team. We contributing when doing the reviewing the study, and later we would like to bring to disseminate with our 10 ASEAN member states. I think this will be crucial for us because we want to enhance first the knowledge, because from the knowledge we hope we can enhance understanding, and later it can be a good manner for the region in terms of the understanding on the gender equality that we hope at the end will enhance also the opportunity on the entrepreneurship. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you very much for the response. I think I noted, and very pleased to see that ASEAN is moving its work on gender equality and women's empowerment in the energy sector in your engagement with your development partners. I also appreciate the note that you have made about the importance of sharing those experiences with all the member states. Thank you for that. Fiza, I'd like to now move to my next question is for you. Fiza, I have had the great opportunity to follow your very impressive career. First as an entrepreneur that was listed by Forbes in 2015 and 2016 as one of the top 30 under 30 social entrepreneurs, and now as a global strategic advisor. Fiza, in this regard, do you see a connect between, on the one hand, the experiences and needs of rural women entrepreneurs, and you having been or still are an entrepreneur, and on the other hand, the global policy dialogues and commitments on the energy transition? And if so, where are the opportunities to create the nexus between women's economic empowerment and access to energy? The floor is yours, Fiza.
Right, thank you so much, Sheila. I understand we're short on time, so I'm going to keep it brief. But your question is very pertinent because the reason why I had this transition myself from being an entrepreneur, working for female entrepreneurs in the rural villages, off-grid villages of Pakistan without any access to energy, and creating that unique nexus between women's economic empowerment and energy access, the impact of which we learned by actually going out in the field and by actually launching innovative programmatic interventions that created solutions to the problems those women were having, which was access to no livelihood, no economic activity, and no energy. And we realized, the solution is just to simply create innovative models of energy entrepreneurship for these women and give them a business of light, so that the whole village has access to electricity while the women have an access to sustainable income. And that became our model, flagship model, which became an international best practice of Light Ladies, called Lighting a Million Lives. And when I transitioned to the global policy level as an advisor to the UN Secretary General and other platforms that I sit on, I did realize that there is a disconnect between what is happening in those far-flung rural villages of the region without any access to energy and to the boardrooms or to the conference rooms where policy is being made. There's a disconnect in terms of understanding the fact that we don't need very complicated innovations. We don't need any complicated solutions to the simple problems. The problems are simple if you look at them, and very simple, innovative models led by local entrepreneurs can reach the solution. We don't need very extended collaborated models which kind of keep building up over years and do not see the day of the light. But what we need is very simple, innovative solutions led by local entrepreneurs, innovative, simplistic ideas, which actually come from the communities themselves. So when we ventured into Lighting a Million Lives, it was absolutely simple. We realized these villages don't have access to energy. The women don't have access to economic livelihood. The climate injustice is borne majorly by the women, because they are the ones burning the candle, burning the fossil fuels, bringing the wood for cooking. And we decided to combine all of this together, and that was Lighting a Million Lives. So I really see, for coming from personal experience, again, being an entrepreneur myself, working with rural entrepreneurs, and then on the policy dialogue, that there needs to be a more direct connect. And I think Empower can definitely bring that connect to the table by connecting the policymakers with the practitioners, by connecting the advocacy with the action, because only then we can see real impact.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That's so Empower will connect us, and don't get lost in complexities. Focus on local solutions and innovations. Thank you very much for that.
And because just to add to this, with the local solutions, every region we're talking about has its own local intricacies. It has its own local complexities, and within those cultural ecosystems of every region, we find the solution and kind of localize it within that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. We just need to localize it within every cultural context to make it a success.
Yeah. Fully agree with you. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Anjali. Anjali, you're the program manager of ISC's Lighting Asia India initiative. And one of your responsibilities is to support private sector to build sustainable markets for off-grid lighting projects, which is underscored by IFC's prioritization of business models and financial inclusion for women entrepreneurs. Could you please share with us some key learnings from IFC on the critical drivers required to scale up access to opportunities and financing for the greater involvement of women in decentralized energy markets? Anjali, if you could also show your camera if you can. So it's nice to have to see your face and having a conversation. Thank you, Anjali. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sheila. I hope you can hear me. I've also shared the video. I hope you can see me as well.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Sheila, for that very interesting question. But before I begin, I would like to thank UNEP, the Empower program in Energia, for giving us the opportunity to be on this panel and share our individual experiences in the space of off-grid energy and gender. So absolutely right. As part of IFC's Lighting Asia India program, the focus has been to partner with the private sector and to build gender-smart business solutions, which provide solutions to the barriers which the sector faces. And there are four major learnings that I would like to talk about today, and some of them have already been covered by Soma and Paramita, but I would also like to re-emphasize them once more, because those are the things which have come out of our so many years of work in this sector. We started working in this space in 2012, and we have worked with multiple manufacturing and distribution companies. The distribution companies mostly work with women entrepreneurs on the ground, and we've helped them develop the business model, scale it up, and really change it as the need was and as the market evolved. So of the 4 key learnings that I want to share, the first one and the most important one in my view is to recognize that there is a business case. And I keep repeating this wherever I speak about our work and gender and energy, because this is really, really important. You have to recognize this upfront, and you have to internalize that there is an absolutely strong business case, whether it is a woman-led SME or it is women as village-level entrepreneurs. It makes sense. It makes business sense to have them. And the reason I say that is because in our case, it was actually a solution to the energy access problem that we were trying to solve. Where we were trying to get quality lighting solar assured product into the rural markets, and we realized that last mile distribution was a big challenge, and how do we solve that issue? So it was not, to begin with, focused so much on, doing something for women. It was actually a solution to a problem that we experienced. And the next step in my view is to, pragmatically understand the challenge which women face, when we look at this particular business model where they are, on the ground selling these products, becoming entrepreneurs, offering after sales and service. Because many of these challenges may be similar to what men face, but in many cases they are different, and the nuances need to be really understood before we bring in a proposed solution, which is, like Fiza said, you have to really localize. You have to have a local solution. It's not one size fits all. You have to really understand what is the issue that you're trying to address rather than just map something on them. So for example, in the case of India, and I'm sure it's similar in other countries, but also a little bit different, there were a couple of challenges that we saw that women entrepreneurs had. There was, first of all, lower exposure to any kind of formal business training. There was lower confidence because they did not have the exposure. They also operate in small and less diverse networks as compared to men. And, as everybody says, there is lack of or limited access to finance. So our approach and the learning in our approach was to be focused, to have a targeted solution where you're trying to solve something in a structured and planned manner rather than try this whole universe, rather than try and build the whole business for them. Establish the business case upfront, and then be very specific. Get the women to understand that they are a part of the solution. They can earn an income out of it. They are the best suited for this issue, and this is not a CSR game, because we work very closely with the private sector. For us, it is important to understand this, and also for the companies and the entrepreneurs that we work with, this to understand. The second most important thing is partnering. So partnering for impact, because as I said, we or any organization alone cannot solve all the problems. So you have to have partnerships at multiple levels, not just with the business that you're working with, but also there are many other relevant stakeholders. There are NGOs, there are MFIs, there are large philanthropies. There are a number of stakeholders, the policymakers that you need to really work with. You have to leverage the work of other organizations rather than keep reinventing the wheel and try and do everything on your own, because that's not possible. And that's what we internalized. We went, and we spoke to multiple organizations, and we brought in many stakeholders. We brought in large philanthropies like the Tata Trust. We brought in the MFI. We brought in NGOs, and we kind of plugged all of it together, so that we're able to shorten the whole process of scaling up the business model, identifying the women entrepreneurs, getting pilots where they have better and easier access to finance. So just partnering and ensuring that you have the right partners with the same objective in mind. Very quickly, the third one is demonstrating the impact, and it's linked to the first one, where you're recognizing that there is an impact. Because if you will not demonstrate it, it will continue to remain in theory. So we have constantly tracked the impact of the work, statistically analyzed it, and also shared the numbers. As Soma was also mentioning about the Thermalife work that we have done, also the frontier market that we have done. You will see in public domain the numbers are available, in terms of the adoption of social impact products, in terms of the income generation of these women entrepreneurs, increased consumer awareness. So we have gone ahead and shared that experience. Then it creates a discussion around it, which is very, very important. Last but not the least, and I know we are short on time, is to stay involved, because these are very, very difficult markets. The chances of success improve when you are a partner with a business and an organization, and not just a conduit, because these businesses are on a journey, and we need to be there, and as help them scale up the business model, the go-to-market strategies, etc. So you have to be there and be with them on this journey.
Thank you very much, Anjali. Tracking progress, but I really like what you said. This is not a CSR issue. This makes business sense and is a test and demonstrated pathway for addressing and scaling up energy access issues in the region. I'd now thank you for that. I'd now like to, my next question is for Karina. Karina, I have worked similar to yourself, both in Asia and in Africa. And one of the elements I really liked about the publication and also the presentation that was made today on it is the sharing of good practices from the different regions. I believe this is also an approach for the Center Technology Center and Network. And specifically, I wanted to zoom into what I know is a best practice of yours coming from the West Africa region, where you collaborated, CTCN collaborated with the ECOWAS Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Efficiency, ICRE, and supported women-led businesses that use clean energy solutions to promote women's economic empowerment in ECOWAS countries. I was wondering, Karina, do you see this approach of capacity building linked very closely to women's business development? Do you see that as a similar initiative that you could start up in Asia? And if so, what would be key components of it, and how would this, do you see any links to the Empower project? Karina?
Thank you, Sheila. Indeed, I see a relevance for Asia in this type of initiative. And the West Africa collaboration that you referred to was based on 13 countries in that region that really came together to recognize that women must be included at all levels of the energy sector if the region was to achieve a full access to a climate-friendly and resilient energy system. So the collaboration that was undertaken to enhance and support women's increased participation involved really a two-pronged approach. So the first part was to develop the capacity of government agencies and civil society who were already engaged in the energy sector to both assess and develop energy policies utilizing a gendered perspective. And the second part was to identify women-led energy businesses and to address the needs that women entrepreneurs around the world cite as the most important, which are namely business planning, business cases, financial management and accounting, and sales and marketing. And we did this through both group trainings and, very importantly, one-on-one mentorships, which culminated in connecting women entrepreneurs with financiers and supporting them in pitching their businesses or upscaled versions of them for investment. So as the Powering Equality publication demonstrates, there's really a strong case for investing in women's entrepreneurship in the energy sector in Asia, yet women in the region face similar barriers in terms of access to business training and finance, as well as gender and cultural norms. So the Empower initiative really is working at the right levels because it is engaging in regional and national level advocacy work for, to influence policy and really create an enabling environment, while at the same time supporting women's entrepreneurship in the renewable energy sector, both through training and mentorship, as well as, importantly, access to finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina. I just also want to remind our participants that you're invited to pose your questions in the chat box. I've just had a look and I don't see any questions. Parashanti, am I correct that I don't see any questions that I could pose to our panelists?
Sheila, I think you may be right. Colleagues,
okay.
Should you have any questions, please do feel free to share in the chat. In case you would like to ask them in person, there is a raise your hand option. So on the panel right in front of you on the screen. So feel free to raise your hand as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that, but while we do that, I do have another round of questions for our panelists. And this is related to the COVID-19 situation, because we cannot have the discussion without bringing that in. And particularly because, as we'd heard before, evidence on the ground is showing that we are, COVID-19 will either rescind the achievements that we have already made on gender equality and women's empowerment, or can be used as an opportunity to readdress structural barriers and build back a greener, more inclusive economies, but will depend on the priorities that we choose. So just a round of questions for our panelists on COVID-19, and I would kindly ask that you keep your responses to really very short. If you can respond within a minute, I'll be very grateful. Vantenaken, I started with you, and so I'm going to come back. And I was wondering if you could just very quickly give us some examples of how the Royal Government of Cambodia's efforts are to rebuild back in a better way for all, but also in a way that is climate resilient and ensures inclusivity. Do you have an example for us?
Thank you, Sheila, for the question. So as we all know that COVID-19 has really negatively impacted globally, and government been tasked to combat the spread of the virus and rebuild our country economy. So Cambodia, although we are lucky with no community transmission, with only 274 cases and 0 deaths reported, the effect of the pandemic severely and negatively impacted number of industry, and rising unemployment, business closure, cost of goods are rising, slow international trade and closing border. So number of policy and action has been taken by our government with financial and technical assistance from various country partner as well as development partner. But currently our economic recovery plan has not yet considered the inclusion of climate resilient building in an integrated way across all levels. So further study also is needed for the integration plan into the existing policy to ensure that stability for the underprivileged community and the recovery of businesses. While COVID-19 impact continue to grow, the climate change impact has never ceased and continue to impact our community in Cambodia in a very real way. As we aim to mainstream our gender equality and climate change to our government policy, we also need to use this opportunity for the recovery, building back better inclusivity to ensure that the disproportionately impacted, such as women, elderly, and disabled group, are not left out in the recovery. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for keeping to the 1 minute that I asked. Septia, I have a similar question to you, also building on your previous response. Is it possible to also provide an example from ACE's perspective, from a regional perspective, of how your interventions are supporting member states' recovery measures to meet the needs of those most acutely affected by the pandemic in the energy sector, including women? Septa, over to you.
Thank you, Sheila. I think this is a very important question related to current situation. From the ACE point of view, we will carry on our 3 critical roles. First one, as a think tank, we would like to assist our member states in terms of identifying what is the needed study or activities for the current situation, especially for women empowerment. Second, we would like to continue our role as a catalyst for the member states. We would like to unify and strengthen ASEAN energy cooperation and integration, because we really need support from our partners during this difficult situation. And for the third one, last but not least, we would like to be a knowledge hub for our ASEAN member states, bringing, for example, the good study for Empower to the member states and other related information to enhance the economy after the COVID-19 situation. In specific, for the collaboration with regarding the Empower study, we will have an ASEAN Energy Business Forum in November, and there we will establish a discussion platform with our ASEAN member states on renewable energy transition in post-COVID-19. And hopefully this can also one of the good example to bring awareness and as secure information for the member states for the impact of COVID-19 by bringing a different angle or specific angle for the woman empowerment. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you very much, Septa. So even if we were to conclude now, the fact that the publication is going to be shared and used for learning and exchange among the ASEAN members, for me is an excellent outcome. Thank you. Fizar, my next question is to you. Again, coming back to your to one of your to your previous life as an energy entrepreneur. What challenges do you think that women entrepreneurs are facing during this global pandemic? Because I think it's good to bring the realities to the fore. But at the same time, while acknowledging these challenges, what opportunities do you think are also arising in the ecosystem?
Right. Thank you so much, Sheila. I'm going to be conscious of the time and make it very short. So as you know, as we all know, that the injustice of the COVID impact has also been tilted a lot towards the women and girls around the world, not just in Pakistan, but everywhere, where women are now prone to double the unpaid care work at home, combined with their work outside of their house, and leading to multiple other issues, including domestic violence and a lot more. What I do find in this environment is a room for a lot of opportunity for growth as well, which was unforeseen earlier, because COVID has made us realize that physical distance is not necessary to create impact. Physical distance we don't need to be physically present everywhere like we're doing right now. This would have taken a lot of more effort from all of us to collate in one hall rather than the way that we're connecting right now, and the learnings are being shared. So we have realized that we need to use digital technology and technological innovations to bring the world together, to bring best practices together, to share learnings, to help the woman in the most far-flung areas by digital connectivity. So with that, what I'm doing in my advisory capacity now is already working with the World Bank and ADB here in Pakistan to launch a project specifically targeting women entrepreneurs on 5 key pillars, which is all embedded with digital technology. So we're focusing on digital skills for rural women. We're focusing on digital entrepreneurship means and digital entrepreneurship trainings, digital infrastructure, to give them the necessary tools to be able to build on and access the digital technologies, digital financial services, and digital platforms. So I think definitely there are lots of challenges in this space, but within that, everybody has now moved towards the opportunity spectrum and is thinking of new and better ways of creating a post-COVID world, which I personally feel would have more opportunities than we did pre-COVID, because now we're going to eliminate all forms of distance. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Fiza. Fully agree with you, and I really like that optimistic approach. Let's learn from some of the good practices coming out of COVID-19 to build back better. Thank you. Anjali, over to you very quickly, not more than a minute, please. From a financial perspective, what do you think financial sector needs to be doing to support the recovery? And is IFC taking steps to support decentralized energy access sector to rebuild from the COVID-19 pandemic? Very quickly, thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And absolutely, yes. I think every organization needs to play its role. And as far as IFC is concerned, we are playing a role at multiple levels, especially in the off-grid sector. We are part of a global initiative, which is fundraising to provide relief to the sector, which should be in the form of a concessionary debt fund, where IFC is a very, very key partner. And we're helping develop the whole fund and providing inputs on its fund structuring, etc. We are also providing technical assistance. We were the early organization. We partnered with Gogla, CGAP, Frankfurt School, etc. We organized webinars very, very early on to help off-grid private sector companies, learn how to manage, because business continuity was impacted, the liquidity issues, a whole lot of crisis issues that they're all dealing with. We are also adapting our technical assistance to support them navigate the whole crisis, and also our future activities, because we had programs which are under different stages of implementation, and we are instead of stopping all our activities, we are tweaking them. We are doing whatever we can to help the private sector emerge from the crisis without without really succumbing to all the pressures that they have.
Thank you very much. Karina, this is going to be my last question to the panelists, and this is to you. And I didn't want us to end our discussion without focusing on innovation. And CTCN does steer and lead innovation in the sector. How do you see, very quickly, do you see trends on green technology and innovation in supporting countries to help bounce back from the COVID-19 pandemic? And do you see women and girls taking a leading role of innovation in this area? For instance, in the way that we heard from Essie for All this morning. Thank you. Rina?
Thanks, Sheila. So at the ground level, we've really seen entrepreneurs the world over having responded to the pandemic with a lot of new innovation, adapting to obstacles presented by COVID, but also opportunities. And at national and international levels, there's a lot of discussion about how to foster this green and innovative recovery. And so clean energy is obviously taking a prominent role in those discussions and could really shift the world's focus on energy, on the global energy mix. Some of the key areas where we're seeing where there's focus on innovation for the green recovery are in the building sector, both retrofitting and new construction, utilizing renewable energies and energy efficient technologies. Also within the circular economy, COVID-19 really exposed limits on existing supply chains and demonstrated a growing need for resource efficiency. So incorporating greater recycling, reuse, and repair of goods, including in the energy sector and energy technologies. And so many countries are looking at how to support SMEs in moving into the circular or incorporating circular economy into their existing work. And then Paramita mentioned also within sustainable food systems, how renewable energies can be increasingly used for solar drying, for example, and post-harvest processing, solar pumping and these kinds of things. And finally, smart mobility is also an area of a lot of focus right now in recovery plans. So all of these areas present opportunities for entrepreneurs, and certainly in considering what role women can play in driving innovation in post-COVID recovery, we can simply look back at the Great Recession that occurred globally around 2008. And at that time, while women entrepreneurs faced greater challenges than male entrepreneurs during the recession, it was new women-led SMEs and existing SMEs that helped to stabilize the economies during the recovery period. So female entrepreneurs helped the world get out of the Great Recession, and they are well poised to do so in terms of building back better after COVID. We just need to ensure that they're included in decision-making levels and in access to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina. So with that, I would like to thank all the panelists for their excellent contributions. And just to close by saying that UN Environment, UN Women and Energy's goal with this publication is to ultimately increase the number of gender-inclusive national renewable energy policies, as well as the investments in women entrepreneurship in the sector, by raising awareness and building capacity amongst energy service providers, governments, CSO, private sector, and financial institutions. This will not only help, we believe that this will not only help to scale up renewable energy solutions in the regions, but will also have a profound impact on women and their broader communities' livelihoods and well-being and climate resilience, especially in the post-COVID situation. Today, we are very pleased with the discussion that we have had because we feel that we've established a network of partners to support this transition. And we're very happy that the publication has started to spur this dialogue and exchange of learning in order for us to achieve results. With that, I would like to hand over to Parashamiti. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. A very big thank you to you and our illustrious panel. Thank you all very much for joining us, colleagues, participants, everyone who took the time out to be with us today. We really extend our gratitude. If you would like to know more about the Empower Project, do visit our website. If you'd like to know more about Energia, do visit www.energia.org. And of course, feel free to reach out to us with any questions, suggestions, questions on the publication and otherwise. On that note, I wish you all a very good day ahead. Stay safe and stay healthy, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.